We just wrapped up day 2 here in Israel and we packed it full. There was so much that we did and saw, and it was really an amazing day. Every day here starts off with an amazing breakfast. After breakfast today, we took off to Caesarea Philippi and we saw the ruins from Herod the Great. He built this incredibly huge theater to impress the Roman Empire. See, after Mark Antony and Caesar had finished up their fight and Mark Antony lost, Octavius Caesar won, Herod needed to prove to Caesar that he could be the greatest Roman governor there was. So he went and he said, I want to be loyal to you the same way I was loyal to Mark Antony. And Herod got the shot. He's got his governorship, and then he got to work. He built this huge theater where they could have gladiatorial games and music and entertainment of all kinds. Right next to that, he built a hippodrome where they had chariot races. And think about Ben-Hur and the way that chariot race went down. You go down and you see where they kept these horses in these huge stables with these arches. And they also created water systems everywhere. Everywhere you go, there's these incredible water systems built by Herod the Great while he was the governor there. And whenever Caesar came to see everything that Herod had done, he was blown away and impressed by what Herod was able to do. This was truly a remarkable city that he had built. He built aqueducts and water systems, and later on we'll see he built this gigantic palace that had these incredible mosaics and all these different things. And whenever you go past that, even you can see next there are ruins of the Crusaders, and the Crusaders, which was about 1,200 years later, left behind these incredible structures to fortify the city and expand its greatness. And it was fought back and forth between the Crusaders and the Muslims for control over this area. And all along the way, we have these amazing markings of people from all kinds of backgrounds. There were Jews, and there were Samaritans, and there were Christians, and they were all represented in Caesarea Philippi. It became one of the capital cities of Rome, one of the greatest port cities that is ever known to man. And still to this day, we marvel at many of the things that were built, especially by Herod the Great. In fact, the aqueduct system seen here is still thought to be one of the greatest achievements, marvels of human history. This aqueduct system, as we kept traveling along, we kept seeing more of it as you see how water was carried from one place to other to irrigate the land. And as we traveled along, we came to a place called Megiddo. Megiddo is known as the place of not only incredible history, which is one of the most important historical landmarks there is, it's also known as a place for the future in Revelation. It's where we get the word Armageddon. This replica of Megiddo here was really incredible. They used projection system to display different time periods from the early Bronze Age all the way through the Iron Age. They've excavated this land and have found 30 layers of civilizations that have been built on top of each other to create this mound, this large mound that you come to in Megiddo. And you can see that this land was used for all kinds of things and took different shape throughout the last 5,000 to 6,000 years. As you walk into Megiddo, you see the steps from the first Iron Age. You look out and you see this incredible view of where this final battle is supposed to take place, and also a place, this is the battlefield that one of the greatest world wars, that really truly the first world war, where a Pharaoh took on the kings of Canaan and this region. And you can see, as you walk further into Megiddo, you get different views of history. And all along the way, we have our incredible guide, Dr. Long, who gets so excited to show us. Right now, he's pointing at something from the early Bronze Age, which would be about, which is before Moses, before history, before we have even the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. This is about the time whenever Job was probably on earth, and so we got to see artifacts from then. There's a gigantic silo that you can see where they stored food and protected it. And then you come to this staircase down, and our guide Nadi took us down into this water system of Megiddo that had been dug out from one end to another so that water could pump up and into the city of Megiddo, and people could get their fresh water. Now, when you're down there today, there is definitely no fresh water. That water is dank and nasty. There's no way you could drink it. And so we walked through that, and we smelled the smells and saw just how incredible a feat it would have taken for them to drill and cut all the way through that. So finally we got to the other side, and we traveled again. I took a fat nap in between these next two sites, but we made it to Nazareth. And Nazareth has a recreation of the city that Jesus would have grown up in. This replica is incredibly accurate. They excavated a lot of it, and they found some incredible things, and they just recreated this area that would have been much like the childhood playground of Jesus, complete with donkeys and actors, not really actors, but people who really knew how to do these jobs. They have a shepherd named Abraham, and he's got his sheep there, and they take you in. You can even go into a burial ground, a tomb, and you can see how incredible that is. They would let bodies decompose inside these tombs, and then they would come back a year later and put their bones in a box. And they would, as they said, return to their ancestors. After that, we saw a genuine wine press where they would take off their shoes as a community and squeeze out the grape juice together, this wine. They would stand on an upper stone and it would filter down into the bottom. So I had to take my shoes off because this is quite possibly where Jesus pressed wine with his family. And then we got to an olive press where they made olive oil. They created the layers of olive oil. Then they had a potter's house, and the potter wasn't there today, unfortunately. But we did get to see Joseph, the craftsman, the carpenter. And he showed us all the tools that he would use. And the word for carpenter in the New Testament referred to both wood and stone. And so often the woodworker wouldn't just work with wood, he would also work with stone tools specifically. He had a hatchet and a hammer, and he even let me use one of his most incredible tools. This tool you see here, the drill. And you can tell he's had a whole lot of practice with it, and he does in fact give me a shot at it.
I don't think he's gonna catch on fire anytime soon. Yeah. Maybe a little now.
Then we saw this incredible woman named Hannah. Hannah is the wool worker for the village, and she has a loom, and she creates thread from the wool and then creates blankets in the loom. She keeps her hands busy. She is a true Proverbs 31 woman with this incredible skill that's really been lost in time. And as you're sitting there watching her create this beautiful piece of art, you get to pass around one of the blankets that she has completed from the wool from the sheep that they have right there. And then we got to see the synagogue, this replica of a synagogue. And a man got up and started to read from the scroll of Isaiah, the same place that Jesus had read.
To declare the year of the Lord's favor.
And he was done, he sat down, and he told us some of the parables that Jesus told after he had read. And as I walked out of the synagogue, which was this incredibly immersive experience, I was struck by a city that had grown up around this quiet little village. I was struck by it because it really speaks volumes to where we are in the world today. So much grows up around our faith. So many things that we can choose outside of our faith. This ancient thing that we can hold on to, that we know for certain that Jesus Christ lived, died, and was raised again. This gospel message that we get to carry out into the world can get so overshadowed and distracted by a world that's filled with unworthy gods. In Megiddo, we talked a little bit about 2 Kings chapter 17. The king of Assyria brought in people from all over the place to inhabit the land of Israel. And with them, they brought their gods. So along with Yahweh and the region, all these other gods began to be praised and honored. And the scripture tells us that people started to be eaten by lions. So the king of Assyria has the priests come into the land and teach these people about how to serve Yahweh. So the people begin to follow after God. But it says they also kept serving their own gods. Isn't that a tragic picture? This nation who was supposed to be a blessing to all nations by the gift of Yahweh couldn't even remain a blessing itself. Isn't that just like us, though? We place our faith in Jesus, but then continue to live without faith, faithlessly. Isn't our story better written a different way? Wouldn't it be better if we could tell a story where we placed our faith in Jesus and continued to live by faith?